Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Betray a lion, and you better pray he forgets you. Betray a sigma, and you better pray he doesn't. Let that sink in. You see, loyal sigma males are rare. So rare, in fact, that less than 1% of men ever operate from this level of psychological sovereignty. They're not loyal because they're weak. They're loyal because they've chosen you, even though they didn't need to. That's not attachment. That's intention. But here's the twist. Once you cross the line, hurt them, lie to them, or break their rare trust, they don't explode, they don't chase, they don't even give you the luxury of drama. They disappear, and you're left haunted by a silence louder than betrayal itself. And no, they're not plotting revenge while listening to sad playlists in the dark. This isn't a Netflix heartbreak arc. This is a psychological shutdown with surgical precision, cold, calm, and complete. In today's video, we're going to uncover exactly what happens once you hurt a loyal sigma male. Not the cliché reactions, but the real, raw, and frighteningly intelligent ways he rewires, detaches, and evolves. Spoiler: if you think he's just ghosting, think again. You weren't ghosted, you were archived. Let's dive in. Number 1. He treats sentimentality like a security flaw. Once a sigma male gets hurt, especially by someone he was loyal to, something deep shifts inside him, and it's not what most people expect. He doesn't just build walls around his emotions. He starts treating sentimentality like a security flaw in his entire system. That softness he once showed you, that vulnerability, that willingness to care even when it made him uncomfortable, he now sees all of it as a liability, a glitch, an open door that let the wrong person walk in and do damage. Sigma males don't break down in front of people. They break down in solitude, and then rebuild themselves in silence. The part that loved without a shield, it gets upgraded with firewalls. What used to feel like a warm connection now feels like exposed code that anyone can tamper with if he's not careful. So he patches it, not just with distance, but with deep rewiring. He becomes less sentimental, more strategic, less emotionally available, more emotionally encrypted. The next time someone tries to get close, they won't meet the version of him you knew. They'll meet a version that asks questions nobody else thinks of. They'll feel the cold calibration in his presence, not because he's heartless, but because his heart now comes with a biometric lock. If someone wants access, they'll have to go through layers of proof, consistency, and time. And even then, he'll still have a backup plan to protect himself if things go wrong. He doesn't hate emotion. He just refuses to let it run the show ever again. He's learned that feelings can be weaponized in the wrong hands, even unintentionally. So now every expression of sentiment goes through a mental audit. Is it safe? Is it smart? Is it worth it? And if the answer is no, he won't just hold back. He'll shut down, quietly, calmly, permanently. That's the cost of betraying a sigma male's trust. You don't just lose the relationship. You trigger the creation of a colder, more calculated version of him that only exists because you proved the warmer one was too dangerous to keep. Number 2, he uses the silence to force you to hear yourself. When a sigma male goes silent after being hurt, it's not because he doesn't have anything to say. It's because he knows you do. His silence isn't avoidance. It's intentional, tactical. He knows that words can create noise, but silence? That creates space. The kind of space where guilt echoes the loudest. You won't hear him beg, plead, or explain. He won't try to correct the narrative or defend himself. Instead, he'll remove his energy completely. The same energy that once made you feel seen, understood, and safe. And suddenly, without it, you're left alone. Not just physically, but emotionally. That absence, it's not emptiness. It's a mirror. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. In that silence, your mind starts replaying everything. The moments you dismissed him, the things you said, the warnings you ignored. Every choice that chipped away at his trust now plays on repeat. And this time, there's no distraction to muffle it, no affection to soften it, just you, and the weight of what you did. What makes a sigma's silence even more brutal is that it's not meant to punish you. It's meant to free him. But in doing so, it quietly forces you to confront yourself, not with shouting, not with accusations, just with the deafening reality that someone who once gave you their loyalty now wants nothing to do with your presence, your apology, or your explanation. He doesn't block you to provoke a reaction. He doesn't go cold to play games. He simply detaches. And that detachment becomes a psychological vacuum where all the noise you used to ignore now has room to grow. In the end, it's not his silence that haunts you. It's your own thoughts bouncing off the walls of it. Thoughts you can't escape because he's no longer there to absorb the damage. That's the Sigma's power. He doesn't have to raise his voice to make a point. He just disappears and lets your conscience do the talking. Number 3, he never mentions you again, but you'll feel it forever. When a Sigma male is betrayed, he doesn't go on a campaign to expose you. There's no public drama, no emotional explosion, no revenge post or passive-aggressive quote. He doesn't even mention your name again. Not to his friends, not to the world, not even in passing. And that's exactly what makes it devastating. His silence isn't cold. It's surgical. It's the kind of silence that cuts deeper than any insult ever could. He doesn't need to destroy your reputation. He just makes you a non-event in his life, like you never existed, like none of it ever mattered. He wipes the slate so clean that even memories of you feel like ghosts that don't belong in his story anymore. And here's the twist. You'll feel that absence, not just as distance, but as a full-on erasure. Not because he's trying to hurt you, but because he's showing you what your absence actually looks like in his world. Complete, irreversible, and absolute. People expect anger, retaliation, or at least some reaction. But when a Sigma male removes you and acts like you never mattered, it creates a psychological black hole. Your brain tries to grasp at something, anything, to prove that you were significant. But there's nothing. No evidence, no trace, just silence. And the realization that someone can detach from you so completely, they no longer even acknowledge your existence. And that will echo. Not because he made you feel small, but because you realize you were never the core of his world. You were a part of it because he allowed you in. Once that door shuts, it doesn't slam, it vanishes. You won't see him talk badly about you. You won't be a topic. You won't even be a memory he shares. But you'll feel his silence creeping back into your thoughts at random moments. Because it's not the noise of a person that haunts. It's the emptiness where their presence used to live. And with a Sigma male, that silence doesn't just hurt, it lasts. Number 4, he stops romanticizing humanity. When a Sigma male is betrayed, it doesn't just break his trust in you. It fractures something much deeper, his view of human nature itself. He stops romanticizing people, stops assuming good intentions, stops believing that authenticity is the default in others just because it is in him. That one betrayal becomes a turning point. Not because he's emotionally fragile, but because he was intellectually honest enough to admit he misjudged. He starts looking at the world through a colder, clearer lens. The innocence that once gave people the benefit of the doubt, gone. Now every relationship is run through a silent filter. What are you hiding? What's your angle? How long until you switch up? It's not paranoia. It's upgraded pattern recognition, the kind that no longer lets charm override instinct. Where he once gave trust early, now he gives distance. Where he once believed in potential, now he waits for proof. This isn't bitterness. This is strategy born from experience. He doesn't hate people. He just no longer assumes they're honest, loyal, or real. Not without making them prove it, slowly, consistently, and silently. And over time, this change starts to bleed into everything. He becomes more solitary, not lonely, selective. Conversations become shorter, invitations get declined, his circle shrinks into a tight, near impenetrable fortress of authenticity. If someone makes it in, they've been vetted like a classified document. But here's what most people never realize. Sigma males don't want to isolate. They want to belong, but only in places that are real. The betrayal didn't just remove a person. It removed the illusion that most people are worth the energy. And once that illusion is gone, what's left is a man who no longer walks through the world hoping for decency. He walks through it prepared for its absence. That's what betrayal does to a Sigma male. It doesn't make him hateful, it makes him colder, sharper, and far more difficult to reach, not because he's damaged, but because he finally stopped pretending humanity was something it's not. Number 5. He becomes violently selective with energy. When you betray a Sigma male, you don't just hurt his feelings. You reset his entire system. He doesn't walk away with a grudge. He walks away with a brand new rule book, and every page is written in caution, control, and calculation. His energy, once freely given to a chosen few, now becomes highly protected currency. And spending it, that's no longer casual, it's violent precision. He stops giving people the benefit of the doubt. There's no more automatic warmth, no more early trust, no more silent hope that people will just get him. Every person from that moment forward gets put through a filtering system so ruthless it would scare off most. Not to punish anyone, but to preserve what's left. Because what you broke wasn't just trust. You broke his calibration, his ability to read people without fear. So now, everyone becomes a question mark. Every gesture gets decoded. Every intention gets examined. He becomes a quiet observer, scanning for signs of deception, weakness, neediness, or ego. And if he sees even a hint of what hurt him before, he's out, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Long before you realize it. You won't notice him being cold. You'll just notice he never fully lets you in. No matter how warm the smile is, he's running diagnostics in the background, testing your consistency, watching your silence, waiting to see how you handle not getting full access. This isn't paranoia, it's refinement. Once bitten, the Sigma doesn't just heal. He evolves. His time becomes sacred. His attention becomes scarce. And his loyalty? That becomes a prize you can't fake your way into. You'll have to earn it through patience, stability, and subtle proof. Over time, and often without praise. He's not bitter. He's just done offering his energy as a gift to people who haven't earned the receipt. You didn't just cost him a connection. You taught him to guard the kingdom. Not with a sword, but with a silence that watches everything and trusts nothing easily ever again. Number 6. He mourns the future you destroyed. When a Sigma male is loyal to you, he's not just present in the moment. He's already seeing a future where you're a key part of his world, not in some fairy tale fantasy, but in a deeply calculated vision. He's built entire emotional blueprints in his mind, the plans, the growth, the shared victories, the quiet support systems. Even if he never says it out loud, he's constructed a life that includes you, not because he needs you, but because he chose you. So when you hurt him, it's not just the present that collapses, it's the future. A future he silently nurtured, crafted, and guarded. That's what cuts the deepest. Not the betrayal itself, but the death of something that never got to live. He doesn't mourn the memories. He mourns the potential, the paths that will never be walked, the moments that will never exist, the version of himself he was willing to become with you in the picture. Now gone. He won't fall apart in front of anyone. He won't beg you to come back and fix it. But in private, he'll go through a cold kind of grief. Not tears, but detachment. Not sadness, but strategy. He'll hold a quiet funeral in his mind for that alternate timeline he once believed in. He'll bury that imagined reality like a dead planet, intact, beautiful, full of life, but no longer orbiting his world. And here's the part most people miss. Sigma males are not emotionally numb. They just process differently. He feels the loss deeply, but it hardens him, not in bitterness, but in clarity. He walks away with scars shaped like futures that never happened. And while you might think he moved on too fast, the truth is he didn't. He just accepted what most people avoid. Some futures are better off dead than lived with regret. So no, he won't talk about what could have been. But that silence, it's not indifference. It's respect for the future that almost existed, and the quiet heartbreak of having to kill it with his own hands. Number 7. He turns betrayal into a system update. When a Sigma male gets betrayed, he doesn't just feel pain. He processes it like a system failure. While most people react emotionally, vent, or spiral, he goes inward like a machine running diagnostics. He doesn't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" He asks, "What code allowed this breach?" Because to him, betrayal isn't just a heartbreak. It's an error in judgment. And he doesn't repeat errors. He takes that pain and treats it like corrupted software. Not with tears or rage, but with code-level reprogramming. He analyzes what he ignored, what he gave too easily, where his instincts failed him. Then he rewrites everything. New boundaries, new protocols, new instincts. He becomes someone who won't be outmaneuvered the same way twice. Not because he's paranoid, but because he's upgraded. The betrayal doesn't make him colder, it makes him smarter, more encrypted, less readable. If the previous version of him let people in based on trust and potential, the next version runs on verification and silence. No more open tabs, no more vulnerability disguised as optimism. From now on, every emotional access point is locked down, not with anger, but with strategy. And here's the part that stings. The version of him you hurt, that version dies. Quietly, no goodbyes, no funeral, just deletion. The Sigma male that emerges after betrayal is still him, but leaner, sharper, more self-contained. If you ever cross paths with him again, you won't recognize him. He'll be polite, maybe even warm on the surface, but you won't be able to read him. The emotional blueprint you once knew will be gone, replaced with a fortress of calm detachment. He doesn't seek revenge. He seeks refinement. The pain doesn't destroy him. It becomes data. And with that data, he evolves into someone stronger, quieter, and far more selective. What you thought broke him actually built his next version. And it's a version you'll never have the password to again. Number 8. He protects future versions of himself from people like you. When a Sigma male is betrayed, it doesn't just change how he feels. It reshapes who he becomes. The hurt doesn't stay in the past. It bleeds forward, permanently altering every future version of him. And here's the hard truth. He starts building a firewall not just around his heart, but around his entire identity. One betrayal is all it takes for him to realize that openness is a risk that can't go unguarded again. From that moment on, he doesn't just protect himself from you. He protects himself from anyone who even remotely reminds him of you. The next people who enter his life won't meet the same man you knew. They'll meet a more reserved, more observant, more emotionally encrypted version. A man who used to offer warmth by instinct will now calculate before he connects. A man who once gave the benefit of the doubt now reads every micro-expression like a warning label. He's not bitter. He's strategic because now he knows that pain isn't always obvious at first. Now he knows that betrayal doesn't wear a villain costume. Sometimes it shows up smiling, and so he adjusts. The Sigma male you hurt doesn't build walls just to keep people out. He builds filters to scan every word, every gesture, every delay in response. Not to punish others, but to make sure he's never caught off guard again. People will notice the difference. They'll say he seems harder to reach, harder to read, harder to get close to. They're not wrong. You flipped a switch in him. He realized that protecting his peace isn't just about healing the past. It's about preemptively guarding the future. So while you may think it ended with the silence or the distance, the truth is you rewrote his emotional operating system. Every next version of him, sharper, colder, quieter, will carry the imprint of what you did. He won't mention you. He won't blame you. But deep down, you'll be the reason he no longer shows his cards. You didn't just break trust. You helped build his firewall. Number 9. He questions his own sanity before yours. When a Sigma male is hurt, his first instinct isn't to point fingers. He doesn't explode or accuse. He retreats inward, deeply, not to sulk, but to audit. Not just the situation, but himself. Before he blames you, he questions his own sanity. How did I not see it? What did I ignore? What did I convince myself was fine when it wasn't? He rewinds the entire relationship like a surveillance tape, frame by frame. Every conversation, every moment of hesitation, every red flag he shrugged off. It's not self-pity, it's an investigation. He takes responsibility for the door he left unlocked, the benefit of the doubt he gave too easily, the empathy that overrode his instinct. And that's the part most people underestimate. He doesn't assume he's the victim. He suspects he was naive. That's what keeps him up at night. Not that you hurt him, but that he let it happen, that he trusted too early, that he rationalized the cracks. He holds a quiet courtroom inside his mind, and he's on trial. But here's where it shifts. Once he finds the glitch, once he sees where he ignored his intuition, he doesn't spiral. He adapts. He doesn't stay stuck in self-blame. He upgrades from it. The Sigma male uses that pain to reshape his entire operating system. He doesn't become bitter, he becomes better. Not for you, but for every future version of himself that will never allow that kind of oversight again. His standards rise, his instincts sharpen, his boundaries become airtight. So by the time you realize what you lost, he's already done the full reset. He doesn't hate you. He just evolved past the version of him that once trusted you. And that version, it doesn't exist anymore. You don't just lose the connection. You lose access to the man who once questioned himself because he gave you too much credit. He no longer doubts himself because you were the final reason he needed to stop overriding his inner voice. Number 10. He doesn't retaliate, he transcends. When a Sigma male is betrayed, he doesn't waste time plotting revenge. He doesn't try to match your energy or engage in emotional warfare. That's not his level. Retaliation is messy, loud, and rooted in ego, and he left all that behind a long time ago. He doesn't fight downward. He simply rises so far above the drama it can't even see him anymore. He understands something most people never grasp. When you retaliate, you stay tied to the thing that hurt you. You're still reacting, still connected, still emotionally owned by the person who betrayed you. But Sigma males, they cut the cord completely. They let the betrayal fuel them, but they never let it define them. Instead of attacking, they ascend. He won't try to make you feel what he felt. He won't create chaos in your life just to soothe his ego. He'll build, grow, expand. He'll pour that pain into progress so relentless, so refined, so far beyond your reach, that your betrayal starts to look like a joke, not to him, but to the universe itself. He'll become so focused, so elevated in his discipline and purpose, that you'll feel left behind in slow motion. You won't be blocked, you'll just be forgotten. And there's no revenge more devastating than being erased from the life of someone who was once all in, not loudly, not dramatically, just silently, efficiently, and permanently. He doesn't need karma, he is the karma. His evolution becomes a mirror to your mistake. Every win he racks up, every goal he crushes, every level he ascends to, it all reflects one thing: you were a miscalculation, and he corrected it by outgrowing the version of himself that trusted you. And the next time you think of him, and you will, you won't feel hated. You'll feel irrelevant. Not because he wanted to hurt you, but because his success became so complete, so untouchable, that your betrayal became meaningless in the presence of his transcendence. Number 11. Deletes the emotional blueprint, not just the person. When you hurt a Sigma male, he doesn't just cut you off. He performs a full psychological reset. Most people, when betrayed, still hold on to some version of the past. A memory, a song, a place, not him. He doesn't just delete you, he deletes the entire emotional blueprint that was tied to your existence. The version of himself that laughed with you, opened up to you, defended you. He erases that man from his system like corrupted code. You don't just lose his attention, you lose your emotional footprint in his mind. The mental association between you and anything meaningful, wiped clean. It's not hatred, it's not revenge, it's clinical, detached, permanent. He doesn't block you out of anger, he just no longer registers you as someone worth responding to. Your name doesn't trigger emotion, it triggers nothing. You become white noise in a world he's now tuned out of. Conversations you once had? He no longer replays them. Things you shared? He no longer feels connected to them. It's like you were a file he once opened, and then dragged to the trash without a second glance. And that's what cuts deeper than rage ever could, because most people hope for some kind of lingering effect, a reaction, a sign that they still matter. But with a Sigma male, you won't even get residue. You'll feel the cold vacuum of indifference where affection used to live. He won't speak your name, think about the good times, or wonder what could have been. He won't carry bitterness. He'll carry nothing. Because once he sees your loyalty as false, the version of himself who trusted you becomes obsolete. He doesn't revisit it. He doesn't grieve it. He simply rewrites the emotional algorithm and keeps moving. And now your emotional access is not just revoked. It's been erased like it was never there. Number 12. He treats the relationship as a simulation error. For a Sigma male, relationships aren't fairy tales or fate-written bonds. They're systems, emotional ecosystems built on logic, observation, and pattern recognition. While others fall in love with stories, A sigma falls in love with alignment, with energy that makes sense. So when that alignment breaks, when trust is shattered or betrayal slips in, he doesn't romanticize the collapse. He diagnoses it. To him, the relationship becomes a simulation error, a code that didn't run properly, a bug in the system. He doesn't sit in heartbreak wondering what went wrong emotionally. He dissects it mentally. Every interaction becomes data. Every red flag he once ignored now gets highlighted, magnified, and studied like faulty programming. He doesn't mourn what was lost. He fixes the system that allowed it to happen, and that fix, it's fast, brutal, final. He doesn't keep reopening emotional files hoping to find closure. He identifies the breach, the misplaced trust, the misjudged loyalty, the emotional vulnerability, and he rewrites the entire protocol. That version of himself that let you in? That code is now outdated, replaced, secured. You may think he's cold for moving on so quickly, but it's not coldness, it's clarity. When something doesn't serve him, he doesn't try to resuscitate it. He flags it, archives it, and rewires around it. Not because he didn't care, but because caring about something that failed his internal integrity is a waste of processing power. And once he patches that system, you're not just out of his life. You're removed from the emotional architecture altogether. No re-entry, no reboot. The relationship becomes an old simulation he once tested that crashed. And now he's building new, more secure, more refined versions of himself that you'll never be coded into again. He doesn't hold grudges. He holds updates. And once the simulation ends, so does your place in his world. Not with hate, but with flawless, unemotional deletion. When you hurt a loyal Sigma male, you don't just lose a relationship. You trigger a transformation. Not the kind that begs for closure or revenge, but one that rewires everything from his trust system to his emotional software. He doesn't retaliate, he evolves. He doesn't chase, he upgrades. And while most people self-destruct after betrayal, the Sigma male becomes untouchable. Not by hiding, but by becoming more discerning, more refined, and far more difficult to access. You won't see him break down. You'll watch him vanish, only to reappear later, sharper, colder, calmer, and operating at a level you're no longer calibrated to understand. His silence will echo louder than any confrontation, and his absence will feel heavier than his presence ever did. Why? Because when a Sigma detaches, he doesn't leave space for confusion. He leaves a void. He doesn't hate you. He simply rewrites the version of himself that trusted you. And that version, it's gone, archived, replaced with a man who now studies behavior before believing in it, who uses pain as data, and who builds futures that no longer have room for emotionally expensive risks. So no, you weren't ghosted. You were systematically erased from a mind that doesn't forget. It just stops feeling. And while you may look back wondering if he still thinks of you, he might, but only as a case study, not a connection. If this video hit deeper than expected, it's not by accident. You're not here because you follow trends. You're here because you crave truth, the kind most people can't handle. So if you're tired of watered-down advice, empty motivation, and recycled clichés, this is your space. Hit that subscribe button right now, not just to follow, but to align with content that actually respects your mind. Like this video if it sparked something real in you. Drop a comment if you've been through it, or if you are the Sigma who's done explaining. And if you know someone who's navigating betrayal, solitude, or silent power, share this with them. Be the signal in a world full of noise. We're not building a trend here, we're building a movement, one cold truth at a time. Stay alert, stay focused, and remember, the most powerful response is elevation. Let them wonder how you got so silent and so unstoppable.